Hey everyone, it's Christoph Chu from beautiful Beverly Hills, California. How you all doing today? I'm doing a live video as I'm heading out to a lunch meeting over at Villa Blanca. Many of you know I go to Villa Blanca. I'm using my Smove. I bought it 6 months ago and didn't have much success in using it, so I'm trying it again. I've heard of other stabilizers for cameras, so I just thought I'm going to try this today and see if it works the way I want it to. But I want to talk about something kind of interesting. So articles came out this week, probably many of you have read it because quite a few of you have actually contacted me about the earthquake fault under Rodeo Drive, right? Media gets a hold of information and they start going crazy and it's all over the place, and 4 or 5 people said to me yesterday, oh my god, the earthquake fault under Beverly Hills and blah blah blah. So essentially what's happened is the new earthquake maps were released on the 17th of January. However, I've told many of my clients now for 29 years, first of all, this is Los Angeles. This is earthquake country. That's just the way it is. Every place you live in the world has some kind of a natural disaster situation. Could be hurricanes, could be floods, could be typhoons, anything. So LA happens to be earthquakes. We don't have hurricanes, typhoons, those kind of things, but we do have earthquakes. Now these faults have been here for many years, thousands, millions of years, and as I've told clients for the last 29 years, basically all the major streets in Los Angeles are earthquake faults. And I know this because selling for 29 years, certain buyers that are from different parts of the world aren't really clear about earthquakes and how it all works. So typically when they have concerns, we hire Harley Tucker, who's one of the top geologists here in Los Angeles. He comes out, brings all the earthquake fault maps, and explains to the buyers where they're located in the fault zones and what the effects can be, if it's a slip fault, an up fault. I don't know about all that stuff, but he talks about earthquakes and how it affects the property. So this report is not new. It's new in the media, but I've seen those maps for years. And Harley, apparently these maps were created 30 or 40 years ago. And for whatever reason, he told me, and I forgot the story, I'll have to interview Harley about it, but the maps were somehow suppressed from being public. So anyways, they're public now, but I've known about them. So let's take a look around, because this is Rodeo Drive. See if I can switch this around. There we go. Okay. So I don't know if this is more stable than my other camera alone, but this is the Smove. I'm here at Rodeo Drive, blocked from my office, and it's kind of nice because I walk by Rodeo to go to lunch when I go to Villa Blanca, that is. So anyways, the information is Rodeo Drive is apparently a fault, which we already knew. As I talked about, most of the streets here in the LA area are in fact faults. And I looked at the new map yesterday, or the newly released map, and it confirmed what I already knew about all the fault zones and the different parts. But I guess that's just part of living in this beautiful place we call Beverly Hills. So, like I said, it's always a little bit of something somewhere, right? I don't know where you live. Say hello everyone, tell me where you're living from, and hey Rich, how are you? And I'm curious, what kind of potential natural disasters do you have? So, the fact that we are in an earthquake zone, you have to be aware of that. Number 2, you have to make sure you have the proper insurance. So aside from your fire and liability insurance, and sometimes you need special insurance for the hillsides, because hillside zones are fire zones, as we've discovered in California recently. There's been a lot of major fires. And then earthquake insurance. Earthquake insurance is kind of expensive, but it's good to have. It's like anything. Insurance is expensive when you don't need it, but when you do need it, it's very inexpensive. I remember in the earthquake in 1991, not a lot of damage in LA, but definitely some friends had some damage in the hundreds of thousands and millions, but having earthquake insurance really helped to mitigate that particular issue. So guys, I'm curious, watching this live, because live videos don't stabilize. From your perspective, because I can't see walking too well, does this camera stabilize well? Is it kind of smooth and better than it is normally? Good. So anyways, talking specifically about earthquake faults, so again, having done this for a long time, I remember back, a few years ago, I sold a property in Santa Monica, and we have something called the Santa Monica Fault, which is one of the largest faults that runs kind of horizontally across the west side of LA. And that's one of the maps yesterday they were showing. It's now a little bit longer than they expected. But when I sold this house in Santa Monica, the fault ran literally through the middle of the property, and the buyer was going to buy it, tear it down and build, and he did. He brought the geologist, he checked everything out, and he was okay to buy a house on the fault. The last earthquake on the Santa Monica Fault was, I think, 3,000 years ago. So I don't know what the time frame is for earthquakes, but So it's just part of the, we call natural hazards of living in this beautiful place. Are you guys afraid of earthquakes? I'm just curious. I had another client that purchased a major home in Beverly Hills a few years ago. And Harley Tucker came out, brought his maps. They were from a foreign country and they have never experienced an earthquake. They don't have earthquakes where they live. So they were concerned, and I shared what I knew and my knowledge. I said, let's get the expert Harley out. He came out. And by the way, to hire a geologist for kind of a verbal survey and summary of the property, it's about $4,000. So if you're buying a property in LA and you have concerns, it's important to have me or have Harley Tucker come out and tell you what you need to know. So anyways, this particular property, at that time, maybe 8 years ago, was $15 million. Today's worth a lot more. And we discovered the earthquake fault, I think it was the Santa Monica fault, as a matter of fact, went literally right through the middle of the property next door, just to the north. And the buyers were like, oh my gosh, what does that mean? If there's an earthquake, are we gonna fall on the ground? Which I thought was a very valid and interesting question. He said, well, it's a slip fault, which means a fault is basically like two connecting points. And on a slip fault, one section will go up and one section will go down. So in the worst case scenario, if you have a house or had a house on that fault, he said, the house could go up on one side and down on the other. But this property was about 100, 150 feet away from that. She said, you're not going to fall on the ground. The house isn't going to split in half. You're, away from the fault zone. But again, we do have earthquake faults. We do have earthquakes. We're pretty used to them. I was born and raised in LA, so 50 years of my life I've lived through many an earthquake. And as with any natural disaster, be informed, be prepared, know what's going on. Be informed, be prepared, know what's going on, and make an informed decision as to what you want to do. Some people don't want to live in the earthquake zone, and I get that. But hey, I think 14 million people do, just in the LA County area. So, and when it comes, because we know earthquakes will come, we'll deal with it and we move on, just like everybody else in the world with whatever they're dealing with in their parts of the world. So anyways, that's my little tour. I didn't really talk about Rodeo Drive. This was about earthquake faults. And look, that building where Villa Blanca is has been here since the 1920s and it's still there. So that tells you something, right? Oh, so back in the 91 earthquake, not a lot of major damage. I think the most damage we had was chimneys falling down in certain areas. So, and then some house cracks and things like that. A couple of red tag properties, that always happens. So anyways, that's my little live chat today about earthquakes, earthquake faults running under Rodeo Drive. So don't be startled. Media gets headlines to get your attention, which is what they do well. And they do it to sell papers and get clicks. So that's the real scoop on the new earthquake maps. And the key is, if you're gonna buy, hire a professional realtor and they can help you figure out what you need to know. Now it's time for my lunch here at beautiful Villa Blanca. Kitty flowers also, always. Here we are. Oops, here we go. Here's my table. Okay, have a good day everyone. See you soon.